In December 2022, more than 20 loaded crude oil tankers sat waiting at the mouth of a strait. No storm had closed it. No war had blocked it. No sanction named a single one of them. What stopped them was a letter, one sentence of confirmation that the world's marine insurers refused to sign. Turkey wanted proof of cover. The insurers said the proof they were being asked for would itself break sanctions law. Waiting time went from 1 day to 4, and here is the part almost everyone gets wrong. All but one of those tankers were carrying Kazakh oil, not Russian. A rule written for one country's crude had caught someone else's. To understand how a letter can freeze a shipping lane, look at the lane. The Bosphorus is 17 nautical miles long, about 31 kilometers. At its narrowest off Kandili, it is 698 meters wide. 12 times on that run, a ship must change course. And at that same narrow point, the turn is 45 degrees. At Yenikoi, 80. Underneath, there are 2 rivers stacked on top of each other, running in opposite directions. Brackish Black Sea water flows south near the surface. Dense Mediterranean water flows north along the bottom, roughly twice as salty. And when a strong southerly wind blows, the top river can stop and reverse. Turkish mariners have a name for it. Ore codes. Now put a city on top of all that. Nearly 16 million people live here. Every day, around 2,500 local crossings carry some 2 million passengers, and they cut across the transit lane at 90 degrees. Ships pass within meters of houses, schools, and wooden waterfront mansions that have stood for centuries. Now run the numbers on what actually goes through. In 2025, 40,172 ships transited the Bosphorus. That is one ship every 13 minutes, day and night, all year. 9,554 of them were tankers carrying dangerous cargo. Roughly one ship in 4. By weight, 48% of everything that moved through was classed as hazardous. But the trend is the part nobody expects. Traffic here is not growing, it is shrinking. In 2007, 56,606 ships came through. Last year, 29% fewer. And yet total tonnage went up because the average ship is now 78% larger. Fewer hulls, much more inside each one. As an oil route, the Bosphorus is modest, about 3.7 million barrels a day, roughly a sixth of the Strait of Malacca. As a food route, it is enormous. Close to a fifth of the world's wheat exports leave through this door. So who writes the rules here? A document signed 90 years ago, almost to the week, in a Swiss town called Montreux. Article 1 lays the foundation, freedom of transit and navigation through the straits. Article 2 spells out what that means for merchant ships. Complete freedom of passage, by day and by night, under any flag, with any cargo, without any formalities. And then, at the end of that same article, comes one short sentence that shapes everything you have just seen. Pilotage and towage remain optional. Optional. In a 17-mile channel with 12 blind bends and a current that can reverse, the local pilot, the one person aboard who has done this 1,000 times, is a choice the captain may decline. Here is what that choice has cost. Between 1982 and 2003, there were 608 accidents in the Bosphorus. In 564 of them, 92.8%, no pilot was on board. And because of Montreux, Turkey cannot make pilotage compulsory. It can build radar, it can run a traffic separation scheme, it cannot require the pilot. What it can do is persuade. In 2006, 48% of ships took a pilot voluntarily. Last year, 61% did. The market is slowly doing what the law is not allowed to. Run the ledger. Montreux did not only set the rules, it set the prices, and it set them in a currency that no longer exists. Annex 1 fixes 3 charges per net ton of ship in gold francs. 0.075 for sanitary control, 0.21 for lighthouses and buoys, 0.1 for search and rescue. Together, 0.385 gold francs per net ton per transit, which leaves one question open for 90 years. What is a gold franc worth? By Turkey's own account, in 1983, it gave up about 3/4 of what it could have charged and fixed the franc at 80 cents. Then it left it there for 39 years. In October 2022, that ended. The franc went to $4.08. By July 2026, it stands at $6.70. For a 10,000-ton ship, the same 3 lines that used to cost around $3,200 now cost about $25,000. Annual revenue from these crossings went from $20 or $30 million to close to $300 million. A table written in 1936 is still writing the invoice in 2026. Since 2022, this has also been a war lane. When the grain stopped, the answer was signed here, in Istanbul, in July 2022, the Black Sea Grain Initiative, brokered by the United Nations and Turkey, with its Joint Coordination Center sitting on the Bosphorus itself. In 12 months, it moved 32.9 million tons of food to 45 countries. In July 2023, it was not renewed. What happened next is the part worth sitting with. Ukraine opened its own corridor, unilaterally with no agreement and no Russian consent. Since then, that corridor has moved 200 million tons at more than twice the monthly rate of the negotiated deal it replaced. All of it through the same strait. Warships were a different matter. Turkey declared the conflict a war, invoked its powers under the convention, and told every state to keep its warships out. Commercial traffic never stopped for a day, and oil found new ways through. After the price cap came a shadow fleet, by the best available estimates around 1,140 tankers, more than 1/6 of the world's tanker fleet, and over 90% of them more than 15 years old. Old hulls, opaque insurance, one narrow channel. Then in March 2026, a loaded crude tanker was hit by drones 14 miles off the Bosphorus. In May, 3 more. This strait has already shown what failure looks like. On the 15th of November, 1979, the tanker Independenta collided in the southern approach with 93,800 tons of crude oil aboard. 42 of her 45 crew died. The fire burned until the 14th of December. Windows broke 6 kilometers away. How much of that oil burned and how much went into the water has never been settled, and there was no fog that day. The other ship had dropped its pilot early and pressed on alone. In 1994, the tanker Nasia burned for 4 days, 5 hours and 40 minutes. Dozens of seafarers died. The following year, the rules changed. Traffic separation, compulsory reporting, and in time, radar control of every transit. It took catastrophe to write the regulation. The pattern itself never left. November 2024, a tanker loses steering off Kandilli and traffic halts for 4 hours. April 2026, a container ship loses steering at Yenikoi and grounds meters from the waterfront. The same bends, the same failure, half a century apart. And how many times a year does the Bosphorus actually close? That is the one number nobody publishes. Turkey's proposed answer is a second strait, Canal Istanbul, 45 kilometers, to be cut from scratch through the land west of the city. But it has never been dug. The only thing standing on the route so far is a motorway bridge, and the mechanism jams anyway. Because Montreux guarantees free passage through the natural strait, no ship can be forced into the canal instead. And that is not a critic's argument. It is in the government's own booklet, which describes the canal as an optional additional facility. Meanwhile, the traffic it was meant to relieve is falling, not rising. And in the 2026 investment program, the line for Canal Istanbul is 10,000 lira, out of 1.92 trillion. So the rule that keeps this strait open is the same rule that keeps it dangerous. Panama can be closed by the sky. This one can be closed by a sentence, written in 1936, still telling every ship threading a city of nearly 16 million that the pilot is optional. Next time, we open the busiest strait on Earth, and strangely, the safest one. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you at the next door.